It comes upon the release of a third-party report, which the board commissioned, that was critical of its actions to stop anti-Black racism. Tonight, they launch a strategy to create systemic change. Our Chris Ensing joins me now live in studio for more on this. Chris, what's inside this report?
Hundreds of responses, Kat. Some describing blatant acts of racism, others saying that there's a lack of desire for change. A warning to our audience that they may find some language in the report to be offensive.
You know, coming from this community, I know, that anti-Black racism exists, but to read it and to hear the stories it was traumatizing to have to read it.
Superintendent Josh Canny is pushing for change at the public board. It's launching a strategy to dismantle anti-Black racism following complaints from Black leaders in Windsor, Essex. This report includes anonymous comments from hundreds of students, staff, parents, and caregivers sharing experiences of racism while at school and failures to address it. There have been many instances of the N-word being used along with bullying about clothing. Teachers were notified. Nothing was taken seriously, said one person. The report also highlights slave days, where a class would compete with another. The losing class required to be slaves for the day. Do those still happen? Were you aware of those before this report?
I'm sure that those, I hope, are not happening now. I know in the past that they probably have happened. They're not the kind of thing that should be happening because of the connotations that go with them. So it's those kinds of things that we need to address.
Director of Education Erin Kelly apologized in the report, saying it was undeniable that Black students, staff, and families have not always felt welcomed. The survey shows the gap. A third of Black respondents saying equitable outcomes for Black students is important to this board. 18% of Black respondents saying Black students get the support that they need to succeed. What do you say to Black caregivers, Black students, Black parents who are looking at a school board that many feel does not treat them fairly?
I think if you looked at other school boards, similar issues exist, and I would think that across Ontario this is something. I think this organization has been brave in going out to do the work. We've worked with our Black community. We've heard them. Not always pleasant to hear. And so I think what we know now is that we have more information, we have more data, we have more tracking systems that will be in place, and that we're committed to this work.
As for change, one respondent writing, I personally have felt retaliation from the board and educators for drawing attention to acts of anti-Black racism, and I am truly fearful of hitting the done button below. Survey respondents not confident that the administration understands anti-Black racism or how to address it. And not many believe when issues of anti-Black racism arise that they're effectively addressed. And some don't think anti-Black racism is an issue at all, writing none. They are treated as well, if not better, than non-Blacks. This is critical race theory bullshit, and if anything, they get preferential treatment. Is there anything you want to say to those who might have a blind eye to what's going on in their own backyard?
It's very difficult when you first read the strategy in the background or in terms of seeing what's going on and realizing, that we come from a system, that has a long and deep-seated history. And it's difficult at first to be able to understand that and to take the blinders off. And I ask people to come to the table with an open mind.
There's a 5-year strategy launching tonight. You can watch it online at the board's YouTube page. It starts at 6:30. Part of that will be hiring more Black teachers. 10% of teachers are racialized at the board, while 20% of people in Windsor have a racialized background. I did speak with Leslie McCurdy of the Black Council of Windsor Essex briefly this afternoon. She'll speak at that event tonight, and she called this a needed change, something the Black community has called for going back decades. Kat?
Thanks for this, Chris. CBC's Chris Ensing live in studio for us tonight. Stellantis and Unifor are battling it out over COVID-19 vaccine mandates. The arbitration hearing wrapped this afternoon as both sides wait for a decision to be made. The automaker says among its Canadian employees, more than 300 workers were suspended on unpaid leave for either not getting vaccinated or refusing to share their status. But the company stresses none of them were actually terminated and that 95% of workers did get their shots. The lawyer for the union representing workers in Windsor and in Brampton says every single person affected should be compensated. They want the policy, which came into effect in December, to be thrown out, arguing it doesn't actually prevent spread. But the automaker's lawyer says we're still very much in the COVID era and the policy is needed to keep workers safe. It's not clear yet when a decision will be made. It's fair to say the newest arrivals at St. Clair College are a bit stiff. They are, in fact, robots. While they look like iPads on wheels, their role is far more complex. They're helping students with developmental disabilities and learning challenges navigate through school. Jacob Barker met the robots and the students they're assigned to.
Some new additions to St. Clair College, Temi robots, a big help for students in the Community Integration through Cooperative Education, or CICE program.
It has helped me to find classes to help me studying for TED, taking notes, because I struggled reading notes, so it helps me with that. I talk to people on it, and if I need clarification, I can ask. I can call my professors and ask them. It's amazing.
Hey, Tammy, can you play music?
Help in the class and help in the hallways.
And it helps by making friends, him and him.
The program has been up and running for the past year, and faculty say they notice the difference it makes for students.
A lot of times we have students in our program in which may be nonverbal or have speech impediments. And so sometimes through presentations, for example, they may be leery or hesitant to present in front of the class. I have taught the students how to go ahead and load their presentation into the Temi robot through programming. And so they stand in front of the class with the robot and press play, and then the robot is saying their presentation.
Something Evan Fairley has taken advantage of.
You can program it by saying, "Hey Temi, can you call Mike Spadotto?" And then it would call that person.
He can present, he could add on a video, he could add on images for students that he's trying to present to that would have value to them.
2 additional robots were donated to the school today, thanks to a $20,000 donation from Atura Power, tools the faculty says will help students settle in.
It's a big place and a scary place could be for anyone starting college, and so the robots and that peer mentorship has really helped. So yes, we definitely hope for it to grow.
With the addition of the robots, there are now a total of 6 at the college. They hope to see more roaming the hallways and the classrooms in the future. Jacob Barker, CBC News, Windsor.
Windsor police say they have arrested the 5th suspect from last month's shooting incident at Super Bowl Lanes. They say 22-year-old Fernando Ratcliffe of Merlin was arrested in London early this morning without incident.
Mr. Fernando Ratcliffe is currently charged with attempt murder, ×5, discharge firearm recklessly, occupy a motor vehicle with a firearm. We still have an outstanding firearm that we are looking for. And again, we continue to ask for the public's assistance in any aspect of this investigation.
This is the last of 5 suspects police have been looking for. Some of those charged have been released on conditions. 5 people were shot outside the bowling alley on April 9th. Police say they are recovering from their injuries. Turning to the U.S. now, all of the victims of the mass school shooting in Uvalde, Texas, have been identified and their families have been notified. Along with the 19 children and 2 adults who were killed, 17 people were hurt, including 3 law enforcement officers. Texas Governor Greg Abbott called on his state and the U.S. as a whole to stand with the community.
Texans must come together and support the families who have been affected by this horrific tragedy. What they need now more than ever is our love. What they need is uplifting from all of our fellow Texans and all of our fellow Americans.
Abbott called the shooting of school children intolerable and unacceptable. He referred to the 18-year-old shooter as evil and demented. Late yesterday morning, the gunman shot his grandmother in the face. She survived and called police. She remains in hospital. The shooter then drove to the school and crashed his pickup truck nearby. He barricaded himself inside a classroom where he shot most of his victims. He was shot and killed by a law enforcement officer at the scene. According to the governor, there was no warning of the attack beyond Facebook posts by the gunman just moments before it happened. To the provincial election now, voters in Essex will have a new face representing them in Queen's Park. After more than a decade on the ballot, the NDP incumbent Taras Natashak is not running again. The candidates looking to replace him have hit the ground running. And as CBC's Chris Ensing tells us, for voters, the province's spending is top of mind.
I don't know how to put it, but people are struggling.
Frank DiPasquale worries for the next generation. This election, he's got plenty to ask candidates top of mind.
What's their mandate on what to do with the deficit?
We do have a plan to get to a balanced budget, but it's down the road.
NDP candidate Ron LeClaire says the party will focus on funding healthcare and education, and the party plans to balance the budget in 6 years.
One of the things that we're going to free up a lot of dollars on is we're not going to build the highway in Toronto at the cost of tens of billions of dollars, because we need to invest in our healthcare and our education.
We do have a very strong plan put it together.
Manpreet Bhar's Liberal Party hopes to balance the budget by 2026, pointing to increased taxes as one way they'll find that money.
We will be increasing just the people who earn more than $500,000, 2% tax on those, and above $1 million, another percent for those.
Conservative candidate Anthony Liardi didn't have time for an interview. His party was on track to balance the budget next year, but that changed during the pre-election budget, now promising balance in 2027. Ontario's budget hasn't been balanced since 1999.
We have got to ratify that. We have got to bring that to a balanced position.
Voter Mike Jenner has the deficit as a major issue. His second concern?
Do you have a real plan for public safety or that type of thing? Because it's top of mind with what goes on in the United States.
Bhar's party will ban handguns, announced before the election started.
We are in favor of banning the guns because this is for safety for every single resident in the area or in the province.
LeClaire, a former inspector with Windsor Police, doesn't believe guns are a provincial issue.
I'm not even sure or convinced that the Liberal plan is even viable at a provincial level. The New Democrats don't take a position on gun control at the provincial level because of the fact that it's federally related or regulated.
The Conservative Party has promised increased funding for police, with leader Doug Ford saying that there will be no province-wide gun ban. There's more candidates running as well. You can find their responses on our website. Chris Ensing, CBC News, Essex.
The Ontario Green Party leader came out of COVID isolation today and headed straight to Parry Sound, Muskoka. It's a riding the party thinks it can win. It would mean doubling the number of Green MPPs at Queen's Park. Loretta Redekop has more on the party's hopes for this election.
How are you, sir?
An enthusiastic welcome for Mike Schreiner with green dreams for this campaign volunteer.
At the very least, we're going to double the Green Party down there at Queen's Park. Guarantee.
But their meetup right beside a sign for their main competition. Today, leader Mike Schreiner lent a hand in what's seen as a two-way race with the PCs. That party's longtime MPP isn't running this time. The Liberals don't have a candidate, and the Greens' Matt Richter, a teacher, came in second the last time.
7-point plan to support Parry Sound, Muskoka.
Today, the party announced a plan specific to the area, including small business support and flood protection. The party believes it can grow this time.
Matt Richter in the 2018 election finished actually slightly better than I did in the 2014 election in Guelph. And we know what happened in Guelph in 2018.
Good morning, it's Doug Ford calling. How are you?
The PC leader made a stop in the riding on Sunday, working the phones to support his candidate, Bracebridge Mayor Graydon Smith. He attacked the Liberal leader for not fielding a candidate.
We see the Greens, they're benefiting from the slide with Mr. Del Duca, but let's make no mistake about it. Graydon is going to win this riding.
The Greens are also hoping to pick up another riding, University Rosedale. Schreiner name-dropped candidate Diane Sachs during the debate.
By the way, Mr. Ford, you fired the wrong environment commissioner.
Last week, the former environment commissioner took Schreiner's place at an event supporting nurses when he went into COVID isolation.
We're working really hard all day, every day. It's very exciting. There's so much momentum.
Back in Parry Sound, Muskoka, the Greens hope the timing is right.
Of course, I'm not happy with what the PCs have done, and so I do like the platform of the Greens.
Locally, there's no Liberal candidate. That's what people want to vote for, but
Matt's been around a long time, and he's been doing, amazing work for us.
With party leaders showing up in this riding, it's a sign the campaigns feel some extra face time could be the difference in a tight race. Lorenda Redicomp, CBC News, Toronto.
Tonight on Voters Corner, we're hearing from you on the environment. 3 voters in the riding of Chatham-Kent-Leamington say not enough is being done to address climate change, and they'd like to see provincial candidates rise to the occasion. Sticking points include concerns the proposed Highway 413 would threaten the Greenbelt in the GTA and the need for green energy infrastructure.
Well, I think the most important issue in the near term is the highway that is proposed to go through the Greenbelt. That is a very serious question, but it's by no means the only question out there, an issue that I have issues with in terms of the Conservative government. I recall when Mr. Ford took over several years ago, the first thing he did was slap stickers on every gas pump in the province, berating the federal government for having a carbon tax. And anyone with any sense at all understands that a carbon tax is absolutely necessary.
The clear shift to what people call green energy. So whether that's windmills or electric cars, it's coming at us like a freight train. It's obvious that that is where consumers are heading, which is the main driver for things. And it's just the shift that we're finding in technology. So one of those critical infrastructures is the idea of green energy. And half the cars being sold in the next few years are going to require to be plugged in. That's just the way they're put together. And I'm not seeing a real plan to deal with that.
One of the problems that we have in Chatham-Kent is that it has one of the lowest amounts of tree cover in Ontario. And while I understand that farmers or anyone else should have the right to manage their land as they see fit, there should be some kind of tax incentive or some system by which they can be encouraged to plant trees rather than cut them down, putting aside, a portion of their property and getting a tax break as a result. If we lose control of the environment, then it becomes out of control.
Live look outside there. We had a pretty gray day today, but it looks like the sun is out again. Chance of rain tonight all the way until Friday. Colette will be here after the break with more. Stay with us. Welcome back. A new cafe is opening up in Saskatoon with a plan that's, well, it's a little bit fuzzy, and here's why. The greeters at this cafe are cats. Perfect Cup is serving up the chance to spend some quality time with friendly felines along with that cup of coffee. And all of the cats are looking for a new home. Perfect Cup is just the latest addition to cat cafes in Canada, which clearly have appeal for young and old. And with that, we bring in Colette Kennedy for a look at our weather forecast. Colette, the weather's been a little wonky today, a little bit of rain, but now it's looking pretty nice out there.
Yeah, Katerina, that's right. Kind of something in there. I don't know for everyone, but we've had almost everything with the clouds and then sun at times. And then, like you say, some wet weather at times as well. And, you know, here we are getting towards the end of May. And just to give you an idea of our normals for this time of year, a high of 23, a low of 11. Today's low was 11 this morning, and we're not going to be dropping to that or close to it as we head through the rest of the day. So we'll keep that as the low. Today's high, 20 degrees. Could we still go back up a degree? It's actually possible with the kind of wonky weather that we have because of the system that's working its way through. It's primarily kind of pulling northward, but it's still having a little bit of an impact. So looking at where those current temperatures are, the breeze off the lake has kept things just slightly cooler in a few spots, but we're going to find that wind sort of shifting direction, more of a southerly flow tonight and then kind of gustier from the southwest tomorrow, increasing the humidity as well. So you can see where the wind direction is here, although the sustained winds aren't terribly strong, generally between 20 and 30 kilometers an hour. So there's a look at some of the mostly lighter showers. Some heavier stuff has moved northward across Lake Huron, but still the risk through the overnight of the odd isolated shower or even embedded thunderstorm pulling through. As we look ahead, you can see that chance just kind of along the international border. So with some of the models, they're wanting to put in some heavier rain in terms of the amounts over the next 24 to 36 hours into the Windsor area. It really will depend if we get tagged by a few of those storms kind of locally with those waves that will be moving through. The good news is that by the time we get to Saturday for the weekend, we'll see things pulling away. This is just taking you to tomorrow evening. You see these amounts are fairly light, but if I roll this into Friday evening, we're seeing a few of these jumping up, including for Windsor, close to 20 millimeters of rainfall. A look tonight at your readings. This is why I say we're not dropping below that 11 that we saw earlier in the day. 26 tomorrow, but it will feel like we're in the low 30s with that humidity. So a few days wet here and there.
Thanks for that, Colette.
You're welcome.
When we come back, we're going to visit the city's oldest home. Stay with us.
home.
Welcome back. Step into the Duff Bobby House and step into history. It's the city's oldest home, dating back to 1798. For much of that time, public access was restricted. Now, that's all changed.
Greetings, me lords and ladies. We are gathered here today in front of Windsor, Ontario's oldest house.
We have public access now for the first time in 224 years. It's always been either under private ownership or public, but with very limited access. Now we have full access to the main floor, which is very important for the dining room, the trading hall, and the parlor. So we're very excited about this. Access will be on a regular basis with the museum staff and our own volunteers assisting with interpreting the building. We have the whole fur trading experience with the indigenous peoples. We have the War of 1812. General Brock was here, Chief Tecumseh was here. This is a survivor of the War of 1812. Very important that this building survived and can tell stories.
It is so full of history, and it includes some history that relates to the Black community here in Sandwich too. For one thing, there were enslaved people who were working here for both the Duffs and the Bobbies during their period of ownership, which is a part that's often not known. People of African descent were involved in the fur trade as well as agriculture and all forms of trade, and certainly working as house servants. But it also has some Underground Railroad connections, this house. It was right by the river. There were lots of opportunities for the people on this property, including Henry Bibb right along here, to witness the droves of people that were coming across on the Underground Railroad. Not many cities are fortunate enough to have a house that dates all the way back to 1798. And this house is full of history. It's in a very accessible location. There are great volunteers here who are very interested in showing people around, and it's just such a joy that there's now this extra access that people can have. We can learn history from books, but it's better, especially when we're talking to young people, to bring them to the places where things actually happen and let them have a look around.
That is it for CBC Windsor News. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great night.